What's up, metalheads? Welcome to the Scrap Metal Podcast, the show for the misfits who've been listening to the same music since high school. I'm your host, John von Frankenstein, and joining me today is my metal thrashing mad co-host, Chris. Chris, I gotta ask you, man, how you feeling?
I gotta say, I'm feeling like a team player.
A team player, there's no I in team, but there's an I in cream pie. Chris, does this have anything to do with how you're keeping your heavy metal street cred?
It absolutely has everything to do with how I've been keeping my heavy metal street cred. At my job recently, we had band t-shirt day because, nice. You know, my job, we like to promote culture and other corporate jargon like that. And it was decided that we would have a band t-shirt day. Everyone is encouraged to wear t-shirts of their favorite bands, their favorite musical artists. And as we recently discussed, I have a lot of those. So yeah. I went through my extensive...
At least 300.
So I went through my extensive collection, and I gotta say, I was very tempted to wear something like my Twin Temple t-shirt that has like a naked woman being crucified or something on the back.
Nice, wholesome.
There was my Slayer t-shirt that has like, I think a hand coming out of a grave holding another like disembodied hand or arm, and like there's like a werewolf with a Grim Reaper scythe and everything, and I was like, oh, that might be good. Not? And then I even thought about wearing, I have a Municipal Waste t-shirt. They're the only walls we build are walls of death on the back, and the front is, you know, Donald Trump shooting himself in the head. And so I thought, hey, maybe I should wear that. I instead opted to wear, it might have been this shirt, because I wanted to wear something that wasn't super offensive. But yeah, so I think I went with Anthrax, or I honestly don't remember because I have so many t-shirts. But yeah I was, nope, that's what it was. I wore my Misfits shirt. That's what it was. I walked around with a giant fiend skull on my torso all day. And it was funny. I was walking in, I asked one guy, I was like, hey, where's your band t-shirt? Because he was wearing like one of the company shirts. Where's your band t-shirt, bro? And he was like, oh, I didn't have one or whatever. And like I was talking about all of the t-shirts I just talked about right now. Mm-hmm. And he asked me if I listened to Avenged Sevenfold, because that's, I guess, the only metal band he listens to. And I'm like, I like Unholy Confessions.
There you go. It's something.
That's it. It's something. But yeah, I thought it was fun, you know, going out and, you know, wearing band t-shirts. It's funny, a lot of people were wearing like classic rock t-shirts. So there was a lot of, you know, Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones. I saw a group
the Target
picture.
T-shirts.
Yeah, I saw a group picture someone posted. Someone printed out like 20 copies of the Rolling Stones lips, and everyone just taped it to their chest of whatever t-shirt they were wearing and claimed that as their band t-shirt. But yeah, nice. I figured, you know, I gotta show off my heavy metal street cred everywhere I go, especially work. I regularly wear band t-shirts to work anyway. Usually on the weekends, but they've seen me in my Anthrax and Slayer t-shirts before. Mm-hmm. But in a way, it did remind me of the Hard Times article and headline about a guy trying to prove how tough he is at Disney World by wearing his Hatebreed t-shirt.
Hatebreed t-shirt.
And I'm like, I've been that guy. I've worn Metallica and Anthrax t-shirts to Disney. So I've been that guy.
God. Dude, I recently went to a fucking, I went to see Kubla Khan live, and I wore my Ghost t-shirt. And for whatever fucking reason, I felt like everyone was shooting daggers at me. And I was like, did I wear the wrong uniform? It's like, fuck it, whatever, who cares? Chris, I love that you wanted to wear your pride right on your sleeves, or right on your chest, if you will, right?
Yep.
Now, that Kubla Khan concert that I mentioned, that took place on 420, the holiest of days for a lot of people that partake in a special little sweet leaf that many, many people love.
The devil's lettuce.
The devil's lettuce, if you will. Jazz salad, if you will. So I very famously, as previously discussed on this podcast, fly into a panic if I ever partake. So I tend to stay away from it. I tend to just go ahead and drink my beer as I like to every now and then. But people love their weed. People love to smoke, and people love to write fucking music about. I sound like such a fucking boomer.
You know, those kids smoking their marijuana cigarettes with their loud rock and roll music.
Have you ever taken marijuana pills? What are marijuana pills? So despite the fact that I'm a little bitch when it comes to weed, lots of people love to smoke. It's fucking legal now, so who the fuck gives a shit? But there are so many bands that have basically made that their whole entire image, their whole entire shtick. It's become a fucking genre.
Yeah.
Stoner metal. I know we're late for 420, but we're doing it today. We are talking about some of the most influential stoner metal bands. Chris, as someone who also doesn't really partake in the marijuana, how did you feel about doing this episode?
Like you said, I do not partake, mostly because we both went to Five Towns and fucking everyone there smoked.
Yeah.
I would go to film sets, we would shoot and be like, all right, time for the rap party. We're smoking in my mom's minivan. I'm like, all right, guys, well, I'm going home. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
Because I still suffer from it, but it was really bad when I was in college. I had really bad asthma.
Yeah.
Last thing I wanted to do was start inhaling smoke when tree pollen sends me into a fucking coughing fit and I think I'm going to die. So the last thing I want to do is inhale smoke. So I was like, all right, I'm good. So I've never, and like since then I haven't even done like edibles or anything. So yes, I have not partook. But with that said, I was very excited to dive into this deep dive because the last few deep dives and explorations we've done have been styles of music that I'm not a fan of. We talk about metalcore. We talk about goth music. I like some new metal. It's nice to finally dive into a style of music I actually enjoy. So this was a lot of fun, and I'm very excited to talk about all of the different bands that Josh Homme is in.
Yeah, it's a surprising amount. It's a surprising fucking amount.
Yeah.
And despite popular belief, the intro to Sweet Leaf is actually Chris after running through a field of pollen. It's just all pollen.
At the time, when we went to Five Towns, I had my white Grand Cherokee, and in the spring, it became neon green because we had two trees in the front yard, and all the pollen would fall on my white Jeep, and it would be neon green until I washed it. So that's what I was dealing with.
You know what's so funny is that stoner metal is it's a genre that I discredited so heavily because I don't know if it was like the fact that I don't consider myself a stoner. Like I like my beer. I like a good whiskey. I like a good bourbon. You know, I'll have a cigar every now and then. And it's not like I don't want to sound like a square. I don't want to sound like a fucking boomer. It was just never my thing. But because it was never my thing, I kind of wrote off stoner metal as like, oh, it's just recycled Black Sabbath riffs, right?
Yeah.
Like, who the fuck gives a shit? Like, it's doom metal, but they're singing about weed instead of fucking the Shai Hulud or whatever from fucking Dune. So,
what's it? Nissan Al Gheib?
Nissan Al Gheib. That's the new model coming from Nissan. But yeah, I think I very much unfairly wrote off the genre because I was like, yeah, it's not something that I can really relate to. And we're kind of doing a reversal of the roles here. Normally you're the one who goes into these episodes and it's like, yeah, this genre fucking sucks. And it's it's not like I'm going into it being like, oh, this genre sucks. It was difficult for me to really grasp onto things because I came into it with such a heavily cemented preconceived notion of what stoner metal is. So like I love that we always try to at least set what the recognizable elements of a certain genre is whenever we do our deep dives. And I think the easiest way to say it, not to sound dismissive, is that Black Sabbath helped to create stoner metal with one looped cough.
Yep.
And that was actually Chris after running through that field of pollen. I love the story. Like, I'd never heard this story until recently. Actually, before doing this episode, I heard the story that the cough at the beginning of Sweet Leaf is actually Tony Iommi is smoking with Ozzy, and he's coughing his fucking lungs out, and they just looped it, and that was the fucking intro to the song. And it's such an iconic song. It's such an iconic riff. And I think that's really what set up the language of what stoner metal is. It is Sweet Leaf is a song romanticizing marijuana.
Yep.
And talking about how, like, yeah, some people don't fucking, like, do not understand your appeal at all, but I fucking love what you do for me. You know, how you open up my mind and how you make me feel and everything. And it's so like funny to think that it just took this one song to make everybody else go, holy shit, we could make an entire fucking career out of this. And that's awesome. And I love Black Sabbath. This is not taking anything away from Black Sabbath. If anything, we're giving credit to the fact that something that seemed maybe so mundane as writing a song about enjoying weed, enjoying a joint here and there, could create a whole entire genre onto itself. And Black Sabbath's sound was so influential for the stoner metal genre. So you've got the fuzzy, distorted, down-tuned guitars. You've got these slower riffs with a lot of just the power chords on them, and just this heavy kind of bassy sound, which obviously came from Tony Iommi down-tuning his guitars so that he could make up for the tension on his fingers, you know, that were famously amputated and gave birth to the sound of Black Sabbath. But it's incredible to think that this one song really just sent a whole entire generation of musicians down this rabbit hole of, like, I want to write songs just like this.
Yeah, it was incredible. And I think, similar to you, I had a bit of a preconceived idea of what stoner metal was. I kind of conflated it with doom metal, which it's similar to, but not exactly the same. And I'm sure I'll get into some songs that surprised me that they were considered stoner metal. But everything you're saying about, you know, Black Sabbath, honestly, from things I saw, that album as a whole, Master of Reality, is in a lot of ways the point where everyone is like, yes, stoner, sludge, and doom metal were invented with Master of Reality.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, Sweet Leaf, opening track of the album. So you drop the needle, first thing you hear is Tony Iommi coughing because he's smoking, which the listener was probably coughing while smoking as well. And they put on this album, and it's funny how it's almost like an invitation, like as if you're hanging out with the band, and then they play this music that is just the soundtrack to you just fucking smoking and chilling, and that's it. And so it is cool how you can kind of, it's, you know what it almost made me think of? It made me think of that that meme with the two astronauts where the original is like, wait, it's all Ohio? It's like always has been. That's what I feel like this is. It's like, wait, it's all just Black Sabbath? Always has been.
Yeah.
Any hard rock or heavy metal genre you have listened to that has come into existence since 1969 all goes back to Black Sabbath. It all goes back to Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler and Bill Ward and Ozzy Osbourne. It was those guys. And this is also the first album that Tony Iommi downtuned his guitar. You know, the first two albums, him and Geezer Butler didn't tune down their instruments. This was the album that they finally did. And then you have Sweet Leaf, you have Children of the Grave, you have Into the Void, these phenomenal songs, especially like the riff of Into the Void is like the stoner and doom metal riff.
Yeah.
Every riff is trying to be that riff.
Yeah. That riff sounds like a million elephants trampling down a fucking hallway. Like I did a video on my Instagram covering that fucking riff back when I was doing like my favorite riffs series because it's so iconic.
Yeah.
It's so simple and yet it's so tough to get that riff right.
Yeah.
Because there is like a complexity to how simple it is. And the slower tempo is so hard to keep up with.
Yeah.
That sentence doesn't make sense. But what I mean is it's hard to play in time when you're playing that slow.
Yeah. Yes.
And yeah, go on. Sorry.
I was going to say that was my signature move in middle school and high school when I played the bass in the orchestra. Right. I'm standing there playing my instrument that's twice the size of me, and the conductor would get mad at me all the time because I always wanted to speed up. And she's like, Chris, you're the one keeping tempo. You can't do that. Watch me conducting and play to my tempo.
Not my fucking tempo.
And that was me. And I remember eventually I learned, and I remember
I got better.
I remember standing next to another bassist, and I remember telling her, like, slow down. Like, you're speeding up. Yeah. I get it. We both went to the same middle school. We both do the same shit. Now we're in high school, and the high school conductor is getting mad at us all over again. Slow down.
Yeah,
we're good. Just slow down. But yeah, oh my God, it's a fucking classic. And like there are other influences that were coming out around the same time. A band that also got mentioned that I listened to one song, Blue Cheer. And their album Vincibus Eruptum from 1968.
Yeah.
I just listened to them doing Summertime Blues, which was fucking awesome. But like, that's also considered an early version of stoner metal. And like, as we get through it and as I listened to it, it was interesting how one of the most important pieces that it said on the Wikipedia page, which I trust to be absolutely correct about stoner metal, was talking about like the riff focused Mississippi blues and how like some of the shit like Dazed and Confused by Led Zeppelin has a very stoner metal feel to it. You know, other bands that they mentioned were like Sir Lord Baltimore, which I hadn't heard of, but Leafhound, who I have heard of and I've listened to a little bit. And I was like, yeah, a name like fucking Leafhound, of course they're a fucking stoner metal band. What was also really interesting, because this is a song that I fucking love, they were talking about the ending of the Beatles' I Want You, She's So Heavy. They're like, that influences this. It's not exactly, stoner metal, but that's a 7.5 minute song that's the same riff for 5 of those 7.5 minutes.
Yeah.
So like, that's what stoner metal became. Yeah. So it's cool to see how there were all of these elements coming together, and then finally Sabbath, like, more or less perfected 3 different subgenres of metal with one album. Yeah,
pretty much. But because I felt like stoner metal was so easily defined by just saying that it's a Sabbath ripoff, I, for 3 decades, have not given the Melvins a fair fucking shake. And holy shit, this afternoon, this very afternoon, I was like, holy shit, I've been missing out on the fucking Melvins all my life. Because there's something about, what's the singer's name? Buzz Osborne. There is something about his look that I was like, okay, Sideshow Bob fronting a rock band. I don't need to fucking listen to this. And boy, was I fucking wrong. like I can admit when I have not given a style of music its fair shake, but I was just so surprised that it is not what I had in mind for stoner metal. I think I really got confused with like, or just like discredited it by being like, yeah, it's just doom metal. It's just slow. It's Black Sabbath riffs that they've ripped off and slowed down even more and added even more fuzz and distortion or whatever to it.
Yep.
And you can hear the influences there in the Melvins, but I was so unfair to this entire genre by just saying like, oh, it's just Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
Like, did you explore the Melvins on this little deep dive?
A little bit, because I found multiple like stoner metal playlists that I was listening to. And Melvins was on there, so I was listening to that, and I don't remember specific songs, but I remember listening to it, and I remember it feeling very like sludgy. And that, and I liked that. I think I prefer more of like the fuzzy riff for 2.5 minutes, but like the sludgy sound of the Melvins, I did like it, and I did enjoy some of what I was listening to. Like I said, I didn't make any note of specifics, but they were a band that like I know I'd heard of, and I feel like I'd tried listening to them in the past.
Yeah.
But then once I saw them on these playlists and on these lists of, stoner metal bands, I was like, all right, let me listen to a few of these songs. And I did enjoy what I was hearing.
Yeah, yeah. They have such a good feel. And some songs that they have are not like the slow plodding, what I thought of as stoner metal sort of riff. It's not just the boom da dum dum da dum da dum da dum. I thought that was I was like, stoner metal, I've got it fucking down pat. I don't even need to listen to any of these fucking bands because it's all gonna be the same shit. And like I really went into it with that prejudice almost of like, no, I don't need to fucking like, no, it's just it's stuff that I can't really get into because it's all the same thing. And they had a few songs where the tempos were a little bit faster and it was a little bit quicker with like a lot more palm muting, and like they just had more energy than I expected to their music. So this is what this show was built off of, was saying like, drop whatever thoughts or preconceived notions you're going into about this particular genre or this particular artist and just listen to the music for what it is. And I'm so happy that I gave myself the opportunity to do that, because I think this is one of the rare cases where I went into a genre or went into a deep dive or exploration of a genre where I was like, I don't think I'm going to like any of this stuff. I couldn't connect with it right off the bat because I really discredited it for just being cheaper Black Sabbath. And kyuss is another band that I did that with for years. Chris, you mentioned Josh Homme at the beginning of the episode. Tell me a little bit more about your exploration with kyuss.
Kyuss is a band that I had heard of and had no idea how to pronounce their name. So I looked that up and was, happy to learn that it's kyuss and not kyuss, which I thought it was.
You wanted the best? You got the best.
The hottest band in the world. Kyuss.
It's like Paul Rudd introducing Kiss. You want this juck? I'm going to give you this Kyuss.
It's King of the Hill, It's Boomhauer introducing Kiss. Bang on down Kyuss. But yes, kyuss.
Boy, I want everyone to know that we've got about an hour and a half fucking of audio that you guys are not going to hear of us doing pretty much that.
There is 90 minutes of content for only us, and about 5 minutes of content that's going to make it out into the internet world.
Oh boy, so tell us more about kyuss.
But yes, kyuss was a band that immediately came up. Them and Sleep are considered like it truly invented stoner metal. Yeah. Stoner rock and stoner metal was wasn't even a name of a genre until like in 1997 when someone put together a compilation called like Rock for Stoners or some shit like that. But it was these two bands that were considered like the first bands considered stoner rock.
Yeah.
So when I look up Kyuss and I see them, they're like the second band on every playlist I'm listening to. So I listened to the song Green Machine off of their album Blues for the Red Sun from 1992. And I was surprised to hear this kind of faster palm muted riff because you, I kind of went in like, okay, it's doom metal. It's going to be like this droning music. And the first thing I hear is like, it's the fuzzy guitar, but it's a riff and the tempo's a little bit faster. And it really surprised me that was considered stoner metal.
Yeah.
But I really liked it. And I thought it was a really good song. The next song on that album, Molten Universe, is exactly what I expected. It was very slow, that fuzzy guitar, that fuzzy riff. I think this is one of the songs that like he repeats the riff for like 2 minutes. Like it's just the same riff, but it was really good and I really enjoyed it. And yeah, this was the start of like, because I think that's how I'd heard of Kyuss, because I had become a fan of Queens of the Stone Age and I liked some of their music, and seeing them kind of tossed in as stoner rock, that really surprised me. And I think that was one of the things that I was like, No One Knows is on one of these playlists. And I'm like, really? That's considered stoner rock? That's got such a like an upbeat kind of blues feeling to it. It's such a good fucking song, but like that's considered stoner rock. And like I said, I think that is more of if Josh Homme is making like the music
by way of right,
like that's considered the same way. Oh, I forget the name of the genre, but it turns out the entire genre is just bands that Jack White is in, like
garage rock.
Yeah, it's like something like that, and it's like every band you look up is a Jack White band. And that's what I started to feel like with stoner rock. But yeah, fucking Kyuss, it was so good listening to it. And then I listened to their album Welcome to Sky Valley in 1994. Fucking Supa Scoopa and Mighty Scoop. This song fucking rips. I fucking love this song.
Yeah.
It's a catchy, fuzzy riff, a little like a mid-tempo riff, so like you can kind of like headbang to it at like a moderate pace. So you can kind of like chill to it and sit there and listen to it, which I loved. And then a song later on that album, Odyssey, starts with the slow and like weird psychedelic sound. And then it goes into like the fast fuzzy riff with the drums and everything. And I love it. And it was really cool how they were doing the things I expected them to do, but then also going against what my expectations were and playing riffs that were a little bit faster. And I think that's what was really cool, was that I go into this thinking, hey, this might be like these like droning songs that are 9 minutes long, and it takes them 4 of those minutes to play, 4 notes. That was almost what I was expecting, and I was very happy to find that it was just more of those blues riffs. And it was so cool whenever I found a song. I don't remember what specifically it was, or if it was even Kyuss, but I remember hearing a song.
Gardenia is another great song.
Yes, that was a really good song. But I remember hearing a song and I'm like, oh, this is just a fucking like Led Zeppelin blues riff on a fuzzed out guitar. And then they just go into it and it lasts for 8.5 minutes. And I'm like, that's not great when you're trying to discover new music and you're trying to very quickly. I find a playlist that's 5 hours long with only 20 songs. Like that makes my job more challenging. I probably should have just put on one of these playlists while I was just like chilling and playing video games or something. But I was trying to make a note of which song it was. But yeah, Kyuss was good. And yeah, like I kind of joked. At first, I was kind of like, okay, so stoner rock is just Kyuss, and then all the members of Kyuss forming other bands.
Yeah.
And that's stoner rock. Because like we said, Josh Homme went on to form Queens of Stone Age, Them Crooked Vultures. Both of those are considered stoner rock or even desert rock. He also has...
I'm so surprised with Them Crooked Vultures because it's fucking John Paul Jones from fucking Led Zeppelin and Dave Grohl. Like, I guess maybe the connection. I don't know.
Maybe. But I know Eagles of Death Metal wasn't considered. I think they showed up a couple times on playlists, but they weren't really considered stoner rock. But then Brant Bjork, the drummer of Kyuss, had also went on to form Brant Bjork and the Bros, and then Brant Bjork and the Low Desert Punk Band. And then he also played with the band Fu Manchu, who I saw in all these fucking playlists as well.
Oh my God,
Yeah, it was funny how, like, very quickly I was like, okay, so stoner rock is Kyuss, and then every band the members of Kyuss has ever been in. And that's it.
Yeah, pretty much. Something that I have always connected with, like connected with smoking and connected with like just being a pothead or whatever is sleep. And that's the exact opposite of what I do if I smoke. I fly into a fucking panic. There was a video recently that was released on Twitter of like these paramedics trying to like ease a kid that's just taken an edible, like you're not dying.
I just saw that.
You're in the hallway. They're in the hallway with them, like just hang out on the couch, watch some fucking TV or something, and relax. But the band Sleep is considered one of the most influential stoner metal bands out there. Like Dope Smoker is something that people are very passionate about this band. Yeah. And defend this band or like the fandom around them is so feral. Yeah. I can't think of any other way to describe it. But I think it's because they take those like very defined elements that we mentioned earlier on in the episode and they lean into them as heavily as they possibly can. Chris, did you explore the world of Sleep at all?
I did indeed, and I probably should have just scrolled down in my notes because it was their song Dragonaut that was the song that was a bluesy Led Zeppelin riff. Then went into like the normal, stoner metal type of thing. But listening to Sleep, that album Sleep's Holy Mountain, that and Aquarian were the songs that stood out to me that I was listening to. Where what was interesting about Aquarian was it starts off kind of like with like a weird time signature or trying to give you the feeling of a weird tempo. Yeah. And then it just slows down and it's like, yep, here's the fuzzy riff and fucking, just get fucked up while you're listening to this riff. And it goes into the slow riff and the vocals come in. So I checked out Sleep. And then it was interesting reading about their album Dope Smoker because it originally came out as Jerusalem in 1999 after they'd broken up because of issues with the record label. Right. So the album comes out, and as Jerusalem, it is 6 tracks, all labeled Jerusalem. Yeah. I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Yeah. And I look up the album on Spotify, and it's on Spotify as Dope Smoker, and it's one 63-minute long track called Dope Smoker. Yeah. And so I listened to like 10 minutes of it, and like, I think this song is what I thought all stoner rock was going to be. Yeah. Like unnecessarily long songs that are just these weird riffs. And that's kind of what I expected. It's funny, when I was in high school, there was this guy that I forget who he knew, but he came to the high school radio station every once in a while. And he was, his name was Ken E. Bones, and he was in the band Negative Reaction. And they have a song called The Moon Song. And someone was like, okay, yeah, this dude's in a band with like an hour-long song, The Moon Song. And they're like a spacey psychedelic doom metal type of thing. So they're not really considered stoner metal, but like it was, that was like, oh, I'm expecting more of that. And so when I finally found Dope Smoker, I'm like, okay, this is Yeah, this is exactly what I expected. It's right in the fucking
Right.
name what
Yeah.
it is. Like there is no mistaking this for any
they're not
other
hiding
style
it. They're
of
not. They're
music.
leaning right into it.
Yeah. And so I expected everything to be this and was surprised when this was really the only song I found that was like this. But yeah, checking out Sleep, they were really good. I think I preferred Kyuss, but this was still really good and was still really fun. Like I said, it's those fuzzy guitar tones playing a blues riff or a rip off of a Black Sabbath riff, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But it was still really good and I really enjoyed it.
I feel like I think it's unfair, and I wonder if it's just the stigma around the genre, or like I don't know. I feel like there is such a preconceived notion around what stoner metal is, where it's like, no, you're not. Where I thought I wouldn't enjoy it because I don't consider myself a stoner. I don't consider myself a pothead. I really don't smoke. But like, I don't know if that's what kept me from exploring any of these bands for that long. And I have a point that I want to bring up a little bit later for why I feel like there's a certain setting for when you can get into this type of stuff. But a band like Weedeater does toe the line of like, you can listen to this no matter what.
Yeah.
And they have a song that's called God, Luck, and Good Speed, I believe is the name of the song. And I listened to that and I was like, this is a fucking it's a great fucking riff. It's such a cool tone. That's something that we haven't really discussed all too much, which I kind of want to hang on that for a second, is the reliance on like fuzz as opposed to just straight up distortion. And it's this fuzz. It's the point where like the distortion is so high that, much like the musicians, that it becomes so compressed, and like it's just hitting you like it's like the sound is hitting a wall, and the fuzz is what gives you that stoner sound. It's definitely connected to the doom sound. It's definitely connected to that Black Sabbath sound as well. But stoner metal, it just capitalizes on that fuzz so much.
Yep.
The down-tuned guitars, the fuzz on the bass as well.
Yes.
A lot of the feedback that you get on there. And it's just, everything sounds so dirty.
Yeah.
Everything sounds so dirty. Everything sounds so raw. Everything sounds like it needs a bath. A lot like your favorite pothead friend. And like, I have to give this genre a lot of the credit that I have not given it in the past, because it's like, there is a lot of stuff that you can find in here that's a lot of fun to listen to. And Weedeater was one of those bands where I was like, okay, I did not expect to like this at all, and this is actually really fucking good.
Yeah, I remember listening to a little bit of Weedeater. They were one of many bands that I found that insisted on like marijuana related names and puns.
Yeah.
You know, you had Bong Ripper, Bongzilla, Beelzebong. Salem's Pot is my favorite. Salem's Pot. Weedeater, Dope Lore, Toke, Harsh Toke, Cough. You know, it was funny how many bands kind of were like similar to, you know, Dope Smoker from Sleep, or like, yeah, you know what you're getting from us. Like, it's, you know what you're getting from us. And so that was funny to see that. And it's going back to what you were saying about the sound of stoner metal.
Yeah.
Like I said, I love that fuzzy sound because I think there was an interesting connection that came up when I started looking at some of these bands, because a band that showed up on these playlists was The Sword.
Yeah.
And
yeah, totally.
When I saw that, it got me thinking about our Classic Rock Redefined episode.
Yeah.
And I was like, we were right there.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, so many of the things that I enjoy about The Sword and comparing the Swords to a band like Lucifer, who has a fuzzy 1970s sound.
Yeah.
In that episode, I seem to remember briefly comparing some of these bands to Wolfmother, who I saw thrown in as like a stoner rock or stoner metal band as well. And they have a very fuzzy 1970s sound. So the sounds of the guitar and of the instruments is something that I already enjoy. So I think that's why I took to this so quickly, where it was like, wait, these guys just sound like all the fucking bands I love anyway. Like, this is the music I've been looking for anyway. And now I found it. And like, it was interesting. You know, I think it was Sleep with Dope Smoker had their amps so loud in the studio, they couldn't be in the room with them at the same time. So they needed to go in, set the microphones up, leave that room, and then play into that room and record it, which is how they got such a fuzzy and ridiculous sound. And it reminds me, I saw some people made comparisons to some of these bands to Cream. And I remember hearing stories that people like Clapton and a guitarist like Jimi Hendrix, when the Marshall stack came out, they turned that shit all the way up. And that's how they got their sound. And that's where the fuzz comes from. You are pushing these, you know, amps and these instruments to their absolute limit. And that's what's giving you that sound. Now you can buy, apparently, you can buy an Amazon branded fuzz pedal. And you can
I'm so glad you brought this up.
You can use your Amazon Prime subscription.
Amazon Essentials Fuzz.
Yeah. Get Amazon Essentials Fuzz, Amazon Essentials Distortion, Chorus, Reverb. So yeah, be sure to get your fucking Amazon guitar pedals. You can order them now and get them delivered in 20 minutes.
Is it the same thing as like a Sears catalog instrument? Because I had a Sears catalog guitar growing up. That was my first electric. I was so pumped because it was a Sunburst guitar like what Clapton had. So I was really excited about it. No, it's not the same thing. Fuck Jeff Bezos. But yes, a band like The Sword kind of being like thrown around within this genre too is it's surprising because like you said, it's like it's any of their music, if you slow it down a little bit and you fuzz it up a little bit, could be considered stoner metal, or some people may consider them stoner metal already. And a band like Cream, a song like Politic by Cream, dun, 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 like that's a fucking slow that down. Dun, 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 dun. That's a fucking stoner metal riff. Hello, that's a fucking stoner metal riff. I like if I've ever heard one.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the connections and the influences do not end at Black Sabbath. And I mentioned before how I felt bad because I couldn't quite explain why I was like not that I wasn't excited to do this deep dive, because I'm excited anytime we do a deep dive and anytime I get to explore a genre of music that I've never really spent too much time with or invested enough time with and given enough credit. But I very much felt like I knew what I was in for and I wasn't going to be surprised by anything. And I think that what helped me to actually get into some of these songs is the fact that I listened to them in my car. I wasn't just listening on headphones.
Yeah.
So I listened to them in my car, and these riffs just begged to be turned up really loud.
Yeah.
So I think if I had explored any of these bands in a live setting, I would have like fucking invested so much into them way earlier.
Yeah.
In my musical exploration life, because these songs and these riffs and the sounds that you get on the album just beg to be played loud or heard loud. It's almost a genre that you have to feel more than you hear.
Yeah.
And if you want to include the element of illicit substances, yeah, it's going to kind of help you feel the music a little bit more. And I just think it's really interesting that, like, as soon as I heard stuff by, like, Electric Wizard,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, fuck. This would be so cool to hear live. Because it really is a sound and a genre that just begs to be, like, caving your chest in with how much bass is going on during these songs. So I think I'm gonna have to fucking do it. And the next time I see one of these fucking stoner metal bands, I'm gonna just have to buy a ticket and go and see them live. Do you get what I mean? Where it's almost a genre that begs to be felt rather than heard.
Oh, absolutely. Because I was sitting here at my desk with a little Bose speaker that I have, and that's how I listen to most of my music. And like, it was so bassy, it was shaking my desk here, and I was like, yep, this is how it's meant to be. It's supposed to be a fucking down-tuned, fuzzy riff that is shaking my desk. And that is the way it's meant to be experienced. Yeah. So I think the experience is definitely a big part of it. And yeah, talking about Electric Wizard, fucking Funeralopolis, fucking
yes,
I fucking love that song. So fucking good.
Dope Throne, fucking Funeralopolis, yeah,
so good.
I heard that stuff and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I want to listen to this on loop and just really fucking loud.
What's interesting talking about Electric Wizard, it was funny. I already mentioned how so many bands included references to marijuana. There also seemed to be like a desire to use like electric, because obviously Black Sabbath, the song Electric Funeral.
Yeah.
I think I found a band called Electric Funeral. I really don't remember. But a band that I had discovered way back when we did our Classic Rock Redefined episode was Electric Citizen. So here's what's really funny. I look at Electric Citizen on Spotify, and all of a sudden their name isn't capitalized anymore. And I'm like, okay, I don't remember that. Okay. So I go in and I see it's like their songs like Beggar's Need, Light Years Beyond, some really cool stuff that I enjoy. And then I'm seeing some album covers that are like, this doesn't look like Electric Wizard. And what Spotify likes to do is if two artists have the same name, they go to the same page. So there's some fucking techno artist called Electric Citizen that is now combined with the stoner metal band Electric Citizen. And the same fucking thing happened with Coven. I go to try to listen to Witchcraft Corrupts Minds and Reaps Souls.
Yep.
And there's some like weird shit. And I'm like, the fuck is this? Because some other group called Coven has this song. I think I just saw it happen to Anthrax as well. I feel like I just saw some weird shit. I think I just saw some like people posting screenshots of some crazy shit showing up on Anthrax's page now. So like that's, I don't know what's going on there, but yes, I wanted to, you know, just mention how it seems like, because that was another band that I saw come up. I don't know how much they're considered stoner metal, but King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. And I was like, all right, yeah, I kind of get that.
They're really fucking good.
I forget which band it was, had a song called Giza Butler, like the city in Egypt where the pyramids are. And then the song like talks about Black Sabbath. Like they talk about Tony Iommi in the song. So it's funny how even though we're able to talk about how much we enjoy the riffs and how much that no, it's more than just pot smoking and Black Sabbath. And then you have bands that are like, no, our entire personality is we smoke pot and listen to Black Sabbath. So like, it's kind of funny to see that as well, where it's like, it's not all like this, but if you're doing it in almost like a tongue-in-cheek kind of way, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, for sure.
I also have to bring up, since there's only two things I ever talk about, and instead of the charismatic voice, this week it's Tony Hawk. When I was listening to Queens of the Stone Age, one of the songs I really enjoy by them is You Say I Ain't Worth a Dollar, But I Feel Like a Millionaire. And that song is featured in Tony Hawk's Underground. And what was funny about it being in Tony Hawk's Underground is that because Queens of the Stone Age is a long band name, and You Say I Ain't Worth a Dollar, But I Feel Like a Millionaire is a long song name, it was abbreviated in the game to QOTSA, Millionaire. So, like, that's what it looks like the song is called in Tony Hawk's Underground, but that's not the full name. But what was really funny was, as I'm going through this exploration, and as I find like a Spotify curated just for you stoner rock playlist, I find this song Mississippi King by Five Horse Johnson, which was also in Tony Hawk's Underground.
That's what I call myself.
I'm not going to question why you have 5. But
keep my secrets.
Yeah, fucking all right, you keep your secrets. There's Gandalf smoking his fucking pipe. Who knows what's in that?
There you go.
You know, I'm the Hobbit eating second breakfast, you know. But yeah, I only know how to talk about the charismatic voice in Tony Hawk, and this week it was Tony Hawk. So I needed to make sure.
I'm glad we had some variety.
Yeah, I needed to make sure I got that in here.
Chris, this was a really fun exploration of the stoner metal genre, and part of me wishes that we had kind of themed our episode around being like Cheech and Chong ripoffs. I'm really sad that we didn't do that. But to make up for that, why don't you suggest a band for our stoner metal fans out there? So,
my suggestion for any fan, any fan of ours, please fucking listen to us. And also listen to Monster Magnet and their 1995 album Dopes to Infinity.
Nice.
The title track, awesome fucking song. They also have songs on this album. Now, I'm not sure if this album is like specifically Marvel Comics themed, because I listened to a song, pretty sure they talked about the X-Men. They have songs on this album called Negasonic Teenage Warhead, who is one of the X-Men, featured in the first Deadpool movie. Mm-hmm. And then you have a song called Ego the Living Planet, which is from Marvel and is in the second Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Played by, who is that? Kurt Russell playing Ego?
Yeah. Fucking Snake Plissken.
Yeah, Snake Plissken. Fucking love it. But yeah, this fucking album, these songs were so fucking good. I loved these guys. And it was much in a similar vein to Kyuss and Sleep, since they were coming out at the same time. The riffs were a little bit faster than I expected, but it was still that same fuzzy sound that I fucking love. And the songs are so cool. Plus, they're talking about like Marvel Comics characters. So like, that works for me as well. You can't go wrong there. So that's why my suggestion this week is Monster Magnet and their 1995 album, Dopes to Infinity.
I love that you went with a band that I immediately recognized the name, and I remember like hearing a couple songs, but I would have never tied them back to the stoner metal genre. So now I'm going to go back and listen to Monster Magnet and give them even more of a chance, because that's what this episode is about. So my suggestion for this episode comes from a band that we've already mentioned within the episode. That's the band Weedeater and their song Wizard Fight. But only because when I saw the name Wizard Fight, I thought, ba 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 ba, Wizard Fight. That's simply what it was. So I put the song on. It's a really fucking cool song. Check out Weedeater. They are, it's like Chris and I have said, there are a lot more influences and a lot more elements that I think fans of metal and rock in general will be able to latch onto. So yeah, give Weedeater a chance. And give Weed Eater a listen and check out their song Wizard Fight.
See, I also started thinking about, what was that, the psychic fight in South Park, where they're like, "Nah, nah, 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 nah."
There's a channel that I follow on YouTube, Dead Meat Podcast, and or the Dead Meat channel. And anytime there's like any fight, like cripple fight, fucking like witch fight or whatever, he's like, oh, it's whatever, like take wizard fight. He'd be like, wizard fight, and there's just the fucking air horns in the background. So good. So as with any of our deep dives, make sure that you go out and kind of open up your mind, whether that's with the assistance of illicit substances or not. But go out there and just try out new genres. You see kind of the effect that it had on me. You see the effect that it had on Chris. And that being said, thanks for tuning into the Scrap Metal Podcast. The time has come for us to pack up our gear, but we'll be back to rock out with you in the next episode.
Stay metal, everyone.
Good night.